The rulebook doesn't say you have to tackle this journey of life alone. These are the times I make those connections with others, so we can all take a look back while we all move forward. This is the Dependent Independent Podcast. MiniSode. Hey there, subscribers. Thank you for downloading and listening to MiniSode 50 and a half of the Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm your host, Nick G. This is a podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. In these minisodes, I speak to my subscribers. I get you caught up on what you missed in our last episode, which is a pretty big episode, episode 50, big anniversary, 2 years to the day, hashtag. What's been going on since my last episode posted, and what you can anticipate in future episodes. If you haven't already done so, please follow me on Twitter at dependent_Nick. You can email the show at thedependentindependent@gmail.com. Understand that this is a 50 and a half episode of a 200 episode podcast. We are well on our way. We're 25% there. So and my dog is barking outside, so it's going to make it real difficult for me to finish this show. Lucky, what's up? You're bothering me. You're interrupting my show, bro. Anyway, you can follow us on Facebook. We are live streaming this on Facebook, but we're trying something new this episode. Usually what I do is I put this on my personal Facebook page, and we are building followers on our the Dependent Independent Podcast Facebook page. But I noticed that I'm putting this on our Facebook page, and no one's watching. So I'm still going to live stream it anyway. But, when you try something new, it might not always work out the way you want to. I also post this video. We're recording this for YouTube. This sucks. This sucks so bad. The fact that I'm going to have to stop this and let my dog in, because my dog, what he does is he looks outside and he sees cats, and he thinks if he goes outside, he can catch cats. So if he sees a cat out front, what he does is he tries to actually chase the cats in the backyard. So I'm going to pause this. I'm not going to stop recording because this is real life. This is exactly what I do every week. And I am going to take my headphones off, and the live stream is going to have to wait, and the YouTube is going to have to wait, because I'm going to have to deal, or at least open my door and let my dog in, because I got to see what he's all about. So hold on one second. Yes! Got there! And we're back! He's not there. He got tired of barking. So, I mentioned our Facebook page. I mentioned our YouTube page. I'm on Twitter at dependent_Nick, and also on Instagram, where we post images. Sometimes I throw photos up there. What? He's back. The boomerang. The dog is back. Look, go lay down. Go lay down. Okay, and now I'm taking another break. Hold on a second. You know what? That's how real life happens. And what he's going to do is he's going to bark there and think I'm going to take him out, because I think I condition my dog that every time I take him outside, he gets a biscuit. And I think that's what he does. He finds a way to manipulate it and actually get a biscuit, which really drives me nuts. So, back to the minisode. Still, 0 people following on the live stream. Excuse me. Which is a bummer, but, you try something new, and that's what happens. These minisodes post every other week. We live stream them on Monday nights at 10 o'clock. And then in between, we have our full episodes where I make connections. And I don't think I said this earlier, but this is a podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. So, in essence, I like to get my subscribers caught up in my minisodes on what you missed in our last episode. Now, our last episode was recorded at Tomfoolery Brewing Company, which, if you attended, and I'm sure if most of you are listening, some of the local folks that attended, and actually some of the folks that came out of town, it was one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And I'll explain what that means by surreal, because sometimes people say it and it feels more like a dream when they say surreal, but it didn't hit me of what actually happened till about 4 or 5 days later. And so let's go back like 2 months before it even happened, when I had the idea that, hey, we were in Tomfoolery Brewing Company, with a brewery on Washington Ave, I think it's Washington Ave, right? Washington Street, Washington Ave, in Hamilton, New Jersey, and we did our pub crawl from there. So we decided to pop in, guerrilla kind of podcasting, popped in a mic up, asked permission really quick from Sean and Gail, the owners, and then we decided to start recording, and we went from there to another bar, and then went home and got fairly drunk and said a lot of things that were probably inappropriate that I might have left in the show, but most of the stuff I took out. But it was a lot of fun. It was a great thing. If you get an opportunity, it's episode 27. Go back and listen to our back catalog. We have an enormous catalog. Listen. If you are new to this, subscribe to the show, because these minisodes are really for my subscribers. It's the time I kind of take to kind of chit-chat with y'all. But our listeners pretty much tune into these and our full episodes. Subscribe to the show. We did fix the iTunes app, so you can download and listen to this show on any podcast app on the interwebs, whether it be iOS or Android. But we finally got the subscribe button fixed on iTunes. The link is in the show notes. Click on that, and then access the subscribe button, click on it, and every time we post a show at midnight on Mondays, you'll get it in your feed, and then you can listen to it to your heart's content. So, back to the 50th, hashtag 2 years to the day. It was an amazing experience that at first I didn't anticipate it to be an experience. It was just going to be myself and my co-host Dewey sitting at a table, and maybe we'll have a few people attend. And as I started sharing, and we talked about this before on the show, sharing my goals with friends and my wife, you start doing that and people want to help. So they start offering input. They start asking have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? And they start making recommendations. And it went from being this thing where I was going to set up a microphone and then actually just talk to people, to then buying a banner, a 4x8 independent podcast banner, to stickers, to posters, to you name it. It was pretty amazing. But when I set out to do it, I had like an image, a vision in my head. And that vision was something I wanted to make reality. So I did a lot of it's simply like some of the things, the exercise was just like walking in the space and looking at it, make sure everything was set up. I could set up the tables and experimenting with the microphone setups, because we had 3 mics there and all this stuff and the lighting and everything. And what I really wanted it to be is perfect. And when you set out and you're like, and I suffer from this, is saying this is how it's going to be, and if it goes this way, it's a success. You become this perfectionist that you don't see anything other than how it's supposed to be. Now, when I first started setting up, we got there early. I humbly asked friends. I'm not really comfortable asking for help. It's a problem I have, but I did send out a text message. Have my good friends Larry, Tom, and Joe come out. There were guys out there to help me out to set up everything. I thought I could do it on my own, but it was virtually impossible. And we posted pictures on our Facebook page and on my personal page and Instagram of what the set looked like. Now, again, visualizing it like this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. It's how the tables were to be set up. It's my wife hooked up all the food. It's how the food's supposed to be. She was amazing in making sure that happened, because none of you who attended the event would have ever eaten if that happened. That's why my wife's awesome, because I don't think of everything, and she really thought of really making sure everyone had full bellies. So we set it up, get the mic set up, and then suddenly people started showing up. Now, I knew people were coming, but I didn't know how many people were coming. And suddenly people were coming that I hadn't seen in a while, and people I didn't know that were coming. And suddenly it goes from 5 people to 10 people. And then people that didn't even know there was a podcast being broadcast there ended up coming over and asking me questions. And then someone from the newspaper comes up and asks me a question. And then a gentleman named Steve from the Gazette starts interviewing me, which, by the way, on Wednesday, I make the front page, which is pretty sweet. I made the big time. So all these things that happened that, again, I was still so consumed in the podcast, I wasn't really understanding what was happening around me. Again, perfection in the internal, a little bit confused and surreal on the external. So as people started showing up, I started creating these expectations, and we talked about it a little bit, and that was the topic of the show. I wanted it to be a success, but I don't think I really understood the success of what it was until it was over. And I mean is, as I'm doing the podcast, I assumed at one point, I thought like perfection would have been that everybody is there and they're all staring at me, right? Everyone can hear me and they're all staring at me, but that wasn't the case. People were drifting, they were drinking beer, I watched as I was recording that people were kind of making connections, which is ironic, but because that's what the show was all about. And all these things were happening that were completely out of my control. So I suddenly started internalizing everything. Remember, we're doing a podcast and sets, and Dewey's there, and I'm kind of just suddenly consumed in what we're talking about. And I decided simply to almost isolate myself from everyone in the room. I just started really focusing on Dewey and doing what we know how to do, and we've done for 2 years, is just have a podcast. So we just started talking. I had assumed that we had cheap seats and there would be a line of people coming up, but there wasn't that many people coming up, and the people that had courage really popped in. Kristen and Jess and my wife hopped up, and you heard them on the podcast. If you listen in episode 50, they came up and shared what they wanted to share. But at the end of the day, still this internal perfection and this external surrealism that I had such a tough time doing. Now, it's been about a week since I did it, and I edited the show, and not till probably till I started listening to the show back did I realize what we actually created, that I started listening to what people were telling me about Sean and Gail. They were saying it was such a successful night, and the bartenders and the tips and the amount of people we got in there that I never realized that with a little bit of social media and a little bit of doing the things that I've learned doing this the last 2 years can really make a serious impact. And it also wasn't just listeners that showed up. It was people that knew me and friends of mine that came to support me. And when you're trying to be this artist, right, and trying to express yourself and using this avenue to do it, you get somewhat consumed with how that's supposed to be. And I think I failed in that. Let me take that back. I didn't fail in that. But I think that I suddenly realized that it was not what I expected to be externally, so I shut it off and didn't realize what was happening. And now that it's been about a week and this perfectionism in my head, and I was talking to Dewey about that this morning, this sick thing I have in my head about things going the way I want. We're all perfectionists, right? We all want things to happen the way we want, and we like being in control of everything. So I was compensating during the show, and I'm only sharing this because I share things like this on the show. I could say, it was great and that was it and that, but getting into my head is what this is all about. And after a week going by, I was able to look back now. I think I can look back and say, the reason why that was perfect is because it happened. That's why it was perfect. The people came, they listened, they ate, they had fun, they enjoyed themselves. It's still going. Once that article is posted in the Gazette and the local newspaper, people are going to be reading it. No one knew who I was 2 years ago, and now they know who I am. And it's it's impossible for me not to look at this differently now than I did before episode 50. I didn't realize the capabilities of what this was, and now we actually did it. So now I have this baby, this mature baby now after 2 years that I want to take even more seriously and see where it can go and get different guests on and connect with you and live stream, still down to hold on a second. Oh, let me check who, no, I didn't see her. I didn't get a notification. Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry, Allie, you're missing this, but it's actually on my Facebook page and not my, it's on the podcast page and not my personal page. So, all right, that's fine. This is the first live stream we're rolling a bagel, but we'll post the stream on my personal page so we'll get some more people. I'm sorry you guys have grown accustomed to that, but this is all an experiment too, like kind of using that as an example, right? Alan McAdams, the podcast host of Passion in Business, who I've talked about. She's a friend of mine. I usually, after these, I reach out to her to kind of decompress because it's great to have an ear, someone that can listen to me. I know you're listening to me now, but this is someone I can really talk to, and in real time. I'm not discrediting my subscribers. I'm glad you listen to me and you support the show, which is really awesome. But it was a perfect show or a perfect experience in the extent that it happened. I mean, I guess the reality is that when things happen, it's perfect, right? It's when a baby is born, it's perfect. When people are married, it's perfect. When there's 2 rainbows in the sky, it's perfect. It doesn't happen exactly the way you want, but at least you can find perfection in certain things without having to have so much goddamn control over it. But without everyone showing up, I wouldn't have enjoyed the experience that I had with all of you. I'm very thankful. I'm looking forward to possibly doing something like that again. But at the end of the day, I am a weekly podcaster, and I'll continue to push out content to all of you. Oh, and since the 50th, my super fan, I think I'm done with the 50th. Go back and listen to the show. And talk about also being a perfectionist. I'm recording this for YouTube. We'll have this on later on this week for those visual people out there that want to watch it. I know you can hear my show and listen to my show and get content from me on live streams. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on obviously from iTunes and any other podcast app on the web. The idea that I had when I recorded the show for the 50th is to tape the show. I had no idea that the camera I bought, and cameras like this, SLR cameras or DSLR cameras, are actually limited to 29 minutes and 59 second recording times, which is why I'm racing to get this done, because they're not allowed to. Some tax issue I found out. So actually, the show was cut off during the first break, and I will do my best to put up a best of, but it's still not right to me. I can't sync the sound. It's not right. It might not even see the light of day. But again, it's that perfectionist in me. If I'm going to put content out, I want you to enjoy it. But most importantly, I want to make sure it looks good. And I don't want to be second guessing what's out there. I know my podcast is always what. That's why I think when I listen to my podcast show, that was when I knew that I nailed it, just the way the show turned out. So we have, I don't know why the time's blinking on the camera. Please don't shut off. So let's see. Last Monday, I was on a show, another podcast. Larry Herrera, who's a super fan of mine that attended the 50th episode and didn't really get him on mic, which stinks, but I was on his show called the Idiots Podcast, which is on Wildfire Radio. It's with Andy Julia and Ray Anthony and Chris Hayes and Drea Rich. I don't know where. I'm sorry. I'm not going to. Sorry, Drea. If I don't want to butcher your last name. And Mimi and Larry, who I had an opportunity to be on their show, which was awesome, which was wicked awesome. Totally out of my comfort zone, but I'm adaptable, so I was able to jump in. I will put. Oh, I keep hitting the mic. I will put links links to that podcast. I put it on our Facebook page, and Larry promoted it on the interwebs and Facebook. But I want to put it in the show notes. Check it out. It's actually, their show is very, very different than mine. Very, very different than mine. But completely impulsive and awesome. And I really enjoyed that show. I just wish it was longer. Like we burned through it very, very quickly. And I would have loved to be able to get into conversations with some of the other stuff. But I want to thank Ray, Andy, and Larry for promoting the hell out of the 50th episode and the event at Tomfoolery Brewing Company. It was awesome that you guys did that. I really had a good time. And I think that I'd love to be on your show again. Larry, I want you on my show. I know, Larry, you wanted the whole cast of the Idiots Podcast on my show, but I think let's start with you. Let's get you on my show in 2017. I want to learn a little bit more about what you're all about. Hey, Allie, all right, yeah, we got people on the live stream, which is great. It only took a little bit of time, but you guys are here, and unfortunately, we're almost done. But Allie, I'm going to call you when we're done. I have a great opportunity in doing these podcasts to actually connect with other podcasters. And in the future, we're going to have other podcasters on the show. I guess it's just that's podcasters listen to other podcasters. It's what we do. And I'm thankful to be on the Idiots Podcast. By the way, guys, if you're looking to get photographs, I have this pretty wicked-ass camera here. Let me know, and I'll help you guys on your website. It's the least I could do to take some photographs of you guys. All right. The last thing I want to talk about since what has happened with me or what's been going on with me since I posted the last episode is exercise. I hate exercise, and I'll explain. I don't understand. Like, it's always bugged me, people that go on these wicked runs and they post their mileage and what they run and their stretchy pants and their sneakers, and I don't get that. I really don't get that. I don't take a picture of me when I drive to work. I don't get that. But they do, and that's fine. I'm not judging. I'm just simply, I don't understand that. But I guess anytime you want to talk about your accomplishments, which I just spent maybe 11 minutes of your time listening to this podcast to talk about the accomplishment of the 50th episode, I guess that's right. Back when I was a college student, 94, 95, I was into muscle magazines. And at the time, I lifted weights and I exercised because I wanted to get laid. I mean, that's pretty much what I wanted to do. Well, no. I mean, let me explain. Of course, any 20-something-year-old wanted to get laid, but to look good and not to feel good, but simply to look good, to bench press and do whatever to build these muscles up. you wanted to look big. And I remember even going from junior to senior year of college, I was playing lacrosse and I put like 25 pounds of muscle on in the summer. And girls looked at me differently. And it was different, right? It wasn't a means of, I was already healthy. I mean, I could drink like a fish and stay up all night. It didn't matter. And there wasn't any reason for me to doubt the fact that I wasn't healthy. But it made me more attractive and made me alluring. And it was I was in college in 94. 94 to 98, Brooke. So that was the reason why I exercised. But now I'm 41, and my best pal Dewey, co-host of the 50th episode, decides to create he's into sports conditioning, he runs a business, and he decided to put an exercise regimen together. And I don't know what it is, man, but I'm kind of still the same person, but, again, it's all about discipline. And the other day, I set my alarm for 5:30. It's just too funny. And then I'm having these dreams before I wake up, because I know I have to wake up, that I'm in this giant auditorium, and in every corner is a yoga mat. And I'm trying to find a yoga mat to do my exercises, but every yoga mat's taken. So suddenly I'm being given all these excuses that, I can't exercise. So suddenly the alarm goes off at 5:30. Megan says to me, my wife, "Why is your alarm at 5:30? And I thought I could push one by her because she's really pushing me to do this. And the only thing I could say is, I don't know. Now, who the hell sets their alarm for 5:30 in the morning and doesn't know why they did it? Well, immediately she goes, "Why don't you get up and exercise?" So I go out and I go downstairs, do my 30-minute workout. It's a lot of yoga, a lot of stretching, a lot of push-ups, a lot of things that Dewey's going to have me, he calls progression, kind of making it get a little bit harder as I do this. I don't know why I can't tap into that excitement that I had back in the day, back when I was lifting weights to find girls. And I wish I could, but it's weird that now I lift weights so I don't blow my quad by just like playing basketball with my son, when it was so much easier to lift weights and listen to Metallica on the Discman that I had and just lift because girls looked at me differently. Like I was that kind of geek that looked at the big guy at the beach and didn't get sand kicked on him, to do that. So I'm exercising now, and one of the thoughts I had just in sharing with you in this minisode is exercising sucks. I don't know why everybody does it. I'm doing it to stay healthy. I've yet to get to a point where I'm excited about it, which is murder. And Dewey, if you're listening, and I don't know if you always listen, my best pal, it sucks. And I'll keep doing it because you're a good motivator, and it's something that my wife motivates me to do, but I really hate it, and it blows. So I got you caught up on what's happened since episode 50, our last episode. Go back, listen to the library. If you're new and you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button in your iTunes app, which is on your phone, which now works, or any other podcast app that you listen to. Forward shows. A good friend of mine, Ray Callazo, he does the Ray Talk Show, Latino Talk. He has a podcast. He is awesome. He is awesome. There's something about him, man. He hung out all the way to the end of the show, and he was just me, Dewey, and him. And I'm going to be meeting with him this Thursday. We're recording episode 51 of the TDI Podcast. I kind of know what we're going to talk about, but I'm not quite sure yet. But he is a skilled podcaster, awesome broadcaster. I'm really excited to have him on the show. We're going to have friends like Annette Bone, Dana Buckler. We're going to have Brooke Sacco back on the show again. Brooke, we're going to have you on the show. It's going to be awesome. It's funny, because getting to the 50th episode was a lot of work, and I wasn't really thinking. I was just thinking about the 50th episode with all the stuff that we got, and the extra T-shirts, by the way. Email me or direct message me on Twitter. You can find our contact information if you want one of these shirts. We'll work something out. I wasn't really thinking about what the future of the show holds, but I still have to get to 200 episodes, which is that sign right there. Now on YouTube, it's right-sided, but on the live stream, totally whack. It's backwards. I want to make sure that I continue to make connections on this show, and I continue to build these relationships or share these relationships with you and pick relevant topics that we can all talk about. It's what I want to do every week until I hit 200 episodes. I'm this far in, and it's impossible for me to stop. I want to thank you for downloading and listening to MiniSode 50 and a half. I want to thank everyone who's on the live stream, all two of you. Thank you for checking in on me. Allie, I'm going to call you in a second. I'm going to have to work maybe really hard to bring people over to the podcast page, although it just tells me that maybe it's just convenient for people to do it. The YouTube video goes up in probably 2 days. I want to make sure that comes out right because I'm experimenting. I talked with a video buddy of mine. He was helping me out with the f-stop and making sure the focus stays in there. Well, we'll get the podcast up tonight. Thank you for downloading the show. Remember to share and rate the show. I got a decent amount of ratings on iTunes, but it makes the show look good. And in talking with Apple to get the show fixed, they said simply by changing the resolution to our thumbnail, I might actually make it to one of the feature podcasts. So that would be awesome. And we are getting big. Make sure you pick up a copy of the Gazette at Wawa in Hamilton or anywhere it is and check out. I'm really curious to see the first time I've been interviewed for an actual newspaper on what it looks like. Thank you for downloading and listening to the show. Thank you for listening and supporting the Dependent Independent Podcast. Stay tuned for episode 51 with Ray Cayazzo. This is Nick G, your host, and I am out.